So if we focus on that first word in that missionary pathway, disciples, who live like missionaries and plant the gospel in their network of relationships. What does that mean? What does it mean to be a disciple? And I go back to the verse I just showed previously, that it's a pretty high bar, that you may be filled to the measure of all the fullness of God. That kind of seems impossible, but how does that actually happen? How can we head in that direction? If we want to express the fullness of Jesus to others, if that's our mission as a collective, together as a church, we must have the fullness of Jesus in us. And one of the ways I like to think about this, if we're going to be going out as disciples as missionaries, we have to be a credible witness to the transformational power of God. We have to have actually had our hearts transformed to love God and love others more, so that we can go out to the world and be credible. We don't want to go out to the world and look like hypocrites when our lives look like something completely different from what we're saying as we share the gospel with people. And so how does this happen? Well, churches have tried to do a lot of different things, creating a lot of different programs to make this work. But I think one of the easiest ways to think about this is actually using the word apprenticeship, because when we hear apprenticeship, that actually translates to the real world for us. When we look at electricians or carpenters or anything like that, doctors, that goes through a process of learning in order to end up in this this position where you have not only the knowledge, but you have changed as a person and can actually do something at this high level of competency. And so with that, I actually would like to show you a video that helps put this in just really clear, easy to understand words.
Let's examine this further by looking at two different teachers and their very different teaching methods. This is Marge and this is Tom. Marge teaches history, which means she mostly deals in information. The goal is for her students to know what she knows, to transfer Marge's knowledge about people, places, and events from her mind to her students. However, Tom teaches guitar, which requires him to teach not only information, but application. The goal isn't simply for his students to know what he knows about music, but to do what he does, to actually play music. If Tom only transfers a mere knowledge of music to his students, he might end up teaching them music appreciation, but he won't produce any actual musicians. Because Marge only deals in information, she spends most of her teaching time delivering lectures. As long as she can create memorable presentations, students will learn something about history. Furthermore, since the same lectures can be delivered in a small classroom or a large auditorium, she doesn't need to limit the number of students in her audience. In fact, it might make more sense to get as many people as possible to attend every lecture. That way she can teach far more people at the same time. Maximizing her time this way is what is known as a good return on investment. But because Tom must concern himself with information and application, he can't afford to merely lecture his students about music. A good guitar teacher and his students must actually practice together. Only through observation can Tom find opportunities to correct a student when she doesn't realize she's doing something wrong, or commend her when she doesn't realize she's doing something right. Like Marge's history students, Tom's music students certainly require good information, but they also require undivided attention. Sadly, this means Tom has a limitation that Marge doesn't. He must keep his number of students somewhat small, or else he won't be able to give them the individual attention they deserve. So whereas Marge might increase her effectiveness by filling up an auditorium, Tom will actually decrease his effectiveness by taking on too many students. This is not a good return on investment. It's actually the law of diminishing returns.
And so I think you get a picture there of a more apprenticeship model, using the example of trying to teach someone how to play the guitar rather than just the knowledge of what it would take to play the guitar or just music theory.